as you mentioned, the banking sector, and it appears that the banking sector has undergone quite a bit of growth in the past few years. Is that a goal of Ghana to become a banking hub of West Africa or of the region?
A financial services center for West Africa, yes. Because we think that with the developments that have taken place in our country, with our stability, with our regulatory framework, with our stable democracy, with the fact that the financial services sector is one of the fastest growing sectors. Indeed, for the first time last year in 2010, the services sector, not just financial services, telecommunications and tourism, contributed more to our GDP than agriculture. Wow. And so it says that the structure of our economy is changing. And yes, we would like to be seen as a credible financial center within the West African sub-region.
What do you credit the success of the burgeoning banking industry in Ghana to? Is it the open and transparent democracy and the government leadership?
And the regulation.
And the regulation.
We passed the Bank of Ghana Act in 2002, where we made the Bank of Ghana an independent regulator of the financial sector. So they're supposed to take their decisions, and they do take their decisions on a professional basis, and are not influenced by the political exigencies of the time. That is really what has created the stability in the banking sector, together with the review of the legislation governing the banking sector. We also passed the Banking Act in 2004. And those are the two most recent regulatory reforms that have helped significantly to strengthen the banking sector.
Just recently, there was a feature in the Washington Post that talked about an agreement between China and Ghana around I believe it's the import of raw materials into China from Ghana. But I was hoping you could just educate me and our viewers a bit about that agreement.
No, it's not to do with the import of raw materials per se. Okay. It is for investment in Ghana. Now, the president visited China on an official visit last year to celebrate 50 years of diplomatic relations between our two countries. And as a result of that, interest was expressed, especially in our extractive industry sector. And there's a Chinese company called Bonsai that has bought 80% of Ghana Bauxite, which is our largest bauxite mining company. Except that they don't just want to export bauxite, they want to process the bauxite into alumina. Now, we already, using hydro energy, had an aluminium smelter, the Volta Aluminium Company, Valco. And so this proposed investment by Bonsai will allow us for the first time to actually have an integrated aluminium industry. In principle, we have discussed and signed the framework agreement for funding for that project from the China Development Bank, so that, of course, once the bauxite is processed, it will be exported to China and I'm sure to other parts of the world, depending on where the price is right, for the purposes of using both alumina and aluminium. And we think it's a significant development because it creates a new industrial sector for us.
That's always exciting because that leads to jobs and revenue and
yes.
all sorts of things. The cotton sector appears to also be a focus of the Ghanaian economy. I'm just wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how that's evolved since in the past 10 years. It seems to me that it's getting more and more developed, more and more sophisticated. And I'm just also wondering if the African Growth and Opportunity Act has any role in that growth.
The cotton sector in Ghana actually collapsed probably from the period 2004 to about 2008. But it's an important sector for us because while cocoa is our cash crop in the north, cotton is the cash crop for the south. And so our government has taken the initiative to promote the cotton sector and to make it a significant agricultural sector in our economy again. And that actually is being done by my ministry, the Ministry of Trade and Industry. Last year we started the Cotton Support Program, and we want to be able to get back in the first instance to 50,000 metric tons because really we had gone quite low. And to put in place both a regulatory framework that encourages investment into that sector and also to give incentives for the smallholder farmers to cultivate the cotton again and to put in place a mechanism for purchasing that is transparent, that is competitive, that gives them as close to the international market price as possible so that there's an incentive for them to grow cotton again. That's very much a work in progress.
Has that led to, or will that lead to, a robust textile industry where you're taking the cotton, refining it, turning it into shirts through factories, and then exporting that under various trade agreements?
Under AGOA, what happened in Ghana was that we have created the new garment industrial sector, and we do have companies that manufacture garments for export to the US under AGOA. The challenge has been to be able to get the Ghanaian textile companies, and we have about 4 major textile companies, the Ghanaian textile companies to be able to produce to the specification of the US market. Right now what they do is that they produce what we call wax prints, like what I'm wearing, which is mainly for the Ghanaian market. And so it's about diversifying and being able to develop new products. With time and with the support of government, we hope that we're going to be able to develop that sector further. But I must also say that the Ghanaian textile sector is facing a stiff challenge with imports from China, because at the moment, as you know, they are the lowest cost manufacturer in the world. And so looking at the challenge of exports from China, looking at our focus on developing our cotton and textile sector, we have to put in place a mix of measures that at the end of the day will help us to achieve what we want to.
That's a situation we can relate to well in the U.S. A lot of our textile and apparel manufacturers were significantly hurt by cheap imports coming in from all sorts of places overseas, and it's changed the industry quite a bit. Now they're focused on high-tech fabrics and nanotechnologies, but it took a very different turn in the last 15 to 20 years. In 2007, I think you mentioned extractable technologies, and perhaps you were referring to oil. This sounds like fantastic news for the people of Ghana, that there is an oil discovery. I understand you are currently pumping and selling crude. I'm wondering if you anticipate selling and exporting refined oil.
Well, it's a new sector with a lot of potential. And we're happy that we have the benefit of having oil, because there's a world of difference from when you're an oil producer and when you're a price taker when it comes to buying oil. And so this for us is most definitely a welcome development. But as you said, it's a new industry. We're hoping that we will not just have the pumping and sale of petroleum crude oil, but we also will have the development of the downstream petroleum sector. And we have had, again, expressions of interest from foreign companies wanting to invest in that sector. We are encouraging those kinds of investments because, once again, it opens up a whole new sector for our economy for us. It certainly generates significant amount of revenues and creates jobs. And for our young people, and our population is relatively young, the most important thing that we as a government need to do is to make sure that we can either promote the investment or make the investments ourselves that create new sectors and create more jobs.
It does seem, though, you are, as a country, blessed in terms of the resources available. I mean, you have a robust agricultural industry. Gold is, I think, your top export, one of your top exports. Cocoa.
Cocoa is our top export, followed by gold.
Gold. Now oil, banking, hydropower, electric. It sounds like there's a lot there. Information technology?
Information technology. About 3 weeks ago, Nestle decided to set up Nestle Business Services Africa, which does its business process outsourcing for all of its African subsidiaries with the exception of South Africa in Ghana. And so what that says is that not only do we have commodities and financial services, but we also have opportunities in the IT sector as well. And for me, that was one of the exciting developments of this year, because when a brand like Nestle decides that of all the places they could locate, they want to locate in Ghana, it says that we have the internet connectivity on a continuous basis. It says that we have the human resources. We have the young people, because this is really a young person's industry. Young people who can provide the accounting and other services, and that they can do so in 3 languages, in English, in French, and in Portuguese. And I think that's great, and I'm hopeful that as a result of that, we'll have a lot more interest in that sector as well.
That sounds fantastic. And are the young people in Ghana learning 3 languages as part of their education?
We're actually learning 2,
Two.
English and French.
Okay.
But at the university level, they have the option to learn other languages as well.
And the service economy in Ghana, is that up to 1/3 of your total economy? It's pretty significant.
At the moment, yes. At the moment, yes. It's just gotten to that status. And of course, for us, we want to have diversification, because you can't be just dependent on agriculture or on mining or on oil. And of course, the more economic diversification that we have, the greater opportunities there are for the Ghanaian people. And once people can have jobs, can earn a decent living, accept that the system of government in which their country, the system of government by which their country is governed, is such that it is credible, it is transparent, and what they say and what they feel is actually reflected in government's policy. I think that we have all the potential to grow even more than we have over the last couple of years.
I mean, you just have such a spectacular story to tell. There's so many fantastic things going on in Ghana. I hope in some small way that our discussion today may help people understand that Ghana is a country within Africa with very unique resources, culture, people, and tourism. And I'll work with some of your staff to see how else we can help educate some of our colleagues and businesses that we work with here. To turn the page a bit, the worldwide economic downturn certainly had a huge effect in the United States and with most of our trading partners. I'm just wondering specifically how that affected Ghana.
Well, in the year 2008, our economy grew by about 7%. In 2009, it went down to about 4.6. Last year, we grew at 6%. This year, we are projected to grow, depending on the outcomes from the oil revenue, between 8 to 9%. I would say that looking at the world average, we're not doing badly. But of course, if there's an economic boom all around, we expect to do even better. And so, as far as we're concerned, the worst impact was in 2009, but we think that we're getting beyond that now.
Do you see a free trade agreement between the United States and Ghana in the near future?
Well, a free trade agreement between the United States and Ghana would be nice, but I hope it will be deferred for a few years, because we don't yet have significant of an industrial base to be able to compete. And that would essentially put us in a position where the balance of trade, which currently is already in favor of the United States anyway, would only be exacerbated further. It's my job to make sure that we get more industrial production, more value addition, and we have something to offer the U.S. market in a significant way, so that a free trade agreement is beneficial to both parties.
You want to have enough industrial production to be able to export quantities of product into the U.S. At the same time, you'll be receiving increased imports, duty quota free, and that kind of.
From the U.S., most of our imports from the U.S. are capital goods, because those are not things that we manufacture ourselves. And our exports to the U.S. are agricultural commodities with some minerals. And so what I would like to see is, instead of exporting agricultural commodities, which really put you in a situation where you are a price taker, to have some more value addition to those agricultural commodities, and to have some more value addition to our minerals, so that we export things that are of more value to the U.S. market while we continue to import your capital goods, because we do think that the technology that comes out of the United States is very good. And so we will continue, I'm sure, to go down that path.